So greetings, Ilarion. I'm so excited to have you here. It's an honor to be here. This is the first time we've had a chance to meet here in the online world. And I just introduce myself very briefly. And I'm Dr. Azra Bertrand, and I'm founder of Biomancy University. And this interview is part of something that I call Eco-Somatics, our ecological body, and really beginning to explore this way that we are so deeply woven in our body and our DNA and our psyche and spirit with the natural world. And I was sharing with folks that I can think of no one else who better embodies this from an early age than you. And for those of you here who haven't met Ilarion or don't know him yet, he is a remarkable human being who had the chance to grow up in an intact traditional lifestyle village, an Unangan village, an indigenous tribal village on the Aleutian Islands, which is what is now Alaska, but what has been in a continuous living tradition of his people for 10,000 years, existing on a very small island, 12 miles by 5 miles, I think, in the middle of the Bering Sea. And so Ilarion's traditional upbringing, we're going to hear all about that. And he also made a transition to become a bridge and messenger from the ancient traditions and wisdom of his people into the modern world. And he made that transition with incredible accomplishment, becoming the head of 17 different boards and founding organizations working in service for Indigenous peoples and for Aleutian Indigenous peoples and beyond. And he's been doing that for most of his life. And currently is the co-founder of the Wisdom Weavers of the World. It's a council of elder Indigenous people from around the world who are sharing the wisdom of the earth and what is so needed for us to hear. And as well as being president of the Global Center for Indigenous Leadership and Lifeways of what we can manage. And he's an extraordinary, accomplished man. But beyond that, I think that you'll feel his deep, deep roots into nature and the natural world, into the indigenous traditions. And this talk is titled Messages from the Earth. So we'll get to hear about Ilarion's perspective of what the earth is trying to communicate with us, and also, of course, bringing in the perspective of the Unangan people and other indigenous elders that he's been in communion with for a long time. So without further ado, welcome, Ilarion. We're so profoundly honored to have you here.
Rasako Azri, or Azra, I guess you'd say. Kelam Echamnak, Kelam Kasuda, Tingunagan Way, Unangan Kuya, Angwan. I said hello, good morning. The morning tastes good in our language, the Unangan language. We don't call ourselves Aleut. That's a name given to us by our former oppressors. We call ourselves Unangan, which means the people by the sea. And we have been out in the Bering Sea for over 10,000 years, and we're still there. And I said, my traditional name is Kuyach, which means it was given to me when I was 4 years old by the last Kuyach that was left alive amongst my people. And it means like an arm extending out from the body, a carrier of ancient knowledge into modern times, a messenger. And then I said I am Unangan, and it means particular things to me, which we will talk about later. But thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here, and hopefully what I share will be useful to some of the members of your audience.
Thank you, Ilarion. Thank you. So I've had the chance to read a little bit of what you've written before and listen to some of the videos you've shared, and I love it. And when I feel your energy, I feel like I'm feeling the 1.25 million seals and the 2.5 million seabirds and that cold, North Pacific humid, foggy air and everything that you grew up in the elements and in this way of being a real person of the sea. And I'd love for you to share with us, what does that mean to be a real person from an Unangan perspective?
Okay, good question. Well, we have stories about our people coming out of Egypt, going out of Mongolia to Siberia, then to Kamchatka and across by traditional craft, not the Bering Land Bridge, as most anthropologists say. And we developed a remarkable civilization. We had names for every part of the human body, inside and out. We performed a basic form of brain surgery, and we developed technologies that allowed us to not only thrive, but not only survive, but thrive in the Bering Sea for over 10,000 years. So my generation was the last generation that had a traditional upbringing. And a little bit about that upbringing, to get to know my grandfather and for my grandfather to get to know me, I had to be with him 24/7, starting at age 4 for 2 years. And so I would have breakfast with him, lunch with him, dinner with him. I would go to work with him when he worked as a slave for the federal government. He'd teach me about going down to the Bering Sea, taking our shirts off, spraying ourselves with the salt water of the sea, and praying toward the east. And then afterwards, that night we might go to the Russian Orthodox Church, because he didn't see any difference between where one got one's spirituality. It's not religion, but spirituality. And after each day out in the Pribilof Islands, I was born on a remarkable island, as you said. When I was a kid, we had 2.5 million seabirds, 1.2 million northern fur seals, and 1,000 reindeer, and 500 Unangan people. On an island was really very tiny, 12 miles long and 5 miles wide. And so the intensity of wildlife there was quite amazing. Although we don't have a word for wildlife. We have words for relatives and all of that kind of thing that most Native Americans have. So I learned that from my grandfather. And one day out in the Pribilof Islands, there's about 20 days of sunshine a year. 20 days. The rest of it is overcast or foggy or both. And it's called birthplace of the winds. So the winds are always going there all the time. And so this one day, it's rare to have a day like I'm going to describe. It was beautiful, clear day. The skies were clear, blue, and the sea was absolutely calm. There was no wind, and the birds were singing, and the seals were barking, and I just thought it was such a wonderful thing. I was 4 years old at the time. And so I made the remark in Unangan Tunu, but it means like in the Unangan language, but I'll interpret it for you. I said something like, "It's sure beautiful out." That's all I said. And he goes, chutuda. It means listen. And he's talking about a deep form of listening. And what he said there in one word probably encapsulated why and how our people thrived and survived in Bering Sea for over 10,000 years in a place that's hard to eke out a living. Because we're people of few words, unlike this seminar, for example, where I'm having to talk all the time. It's a way of being. We call it the real human being. And it's a way of being that understands that words not only are superfluous, but may be dangerous. And that we must be very careful how we use words. And so what he did when he said chutuda, listen, was something that allowed me to go into every sense of my body to take in what I was taking in. And he showed in that one word that we don't talk about those things that have great, profound experiences by us. So that because it diminishes the meaning. And the more you're able to explore and feel that feeling, the more you can expand out into it. That was the understanding. And, you know, our people didn't have footwear, even in the wintertime. We were the only Alaska Native people that didn't do that. And so today, when you see our dancers dancing, they don't have any footwear. That's why. We didn't plan anything, not even where we're going to get the food the next day. And for most people today, that's opposite. They plan everything. So, you know, it's like you are planning for this conference. And so when you don't plan, my people understood, you just simply be present in the moment and in the heart. The rest will be taken care of. And it requires a depth of faith that I call true faith, that for those who follow the Christian path, that Jesus was talking about. Faith can move mountains. Well, this kind of faith, in order to have it, you have to embody it. You trust in yourself, you trust in your family, you trust in your community, you trust in Mother Earth, you trust in the universe, and a Ro, the maker, we call. And it's all of this trust embodied at a cellular level. And this is something that most people have forgotten how to do, but they can still do it. But when you do that, the rest is taken care of. So that in this way of non-planning and the way of being allowed our people to take the living things in the Bering Sea to help our culture thrive. And this is why we thrive. We didn't plan anything. And we just was in the heart and present in the moment. And this is something that my generation was the last generation that experienced that. And so, for example, at age 6, I had an acha, a traditional mentor relationship, but it's even more than that. It's a relationship between an older person and a younger person. And when you see your acha, you know that's your acha. There's no saying it, no preparing anything. You know, you just know. And so that person, the older person, knows you're the otter, and he calls me Acha. And I knew the same thing, so I called him right back. And there's a big reason for that, because this relationship is a relationship that doesn't have words. So he would take me out hunting and fishing, and taught me what it means to be Unangan, how to revere life, sharing, caring, all these things that he taught me from age 5 to age 6 to 13. But he said no more than 200 words to me. So the most profound things that I learned were done without words. And the reason is that we are spirit beings in human form. And that when we come from a formless world and come into form, it's physically very dense. And you will experience those things that this dense form will experience. And so we are careful with the words that we use, the actions that we take, the intentions that we have in communicating whatever it is that we want to communicate with a child. There's very careful consideration given. And in fact, we talk to the children when they're in the womb. This way, the adult's job was to create the space for a child to learn, not tell them what to learn, how to learn, or to define anything. Today's society, of course, you've got the exact opposite. But in this way, I was able to explore my own self in the outer world, in relationship to the outer world and inner world. And so my job as a child was to watch, listen, and learn. And this way is ingenious because it allows you to expand out to the maximum of your capability without the interference of any other person, especially your parents and adults. I grew up not asking any questions. And so that was the way all children were treated during that time. And, you know, I could walk out in the village every day, and every adult that I ever met would always affirm me. Good boy. That's the way every adult would say it to me every day until I was 13 years old and I left the island for government boarding school. But anyway, then I would go to anybody's household, day or night, and be treated like the long lost son. Hello, boy. You come in, sit down, and eat. That's the way I was greeted, no matter what household I went to, day or night. And I was never scolded. How many of your listeners and watchers have ever experienced not being scolded as a child? Very few, I find. But it's really quite interesting because, you see, I remember at age 9 when I stole $20 from my grandfather, and $20 at that time was a lot of money to our people. It takes a year to make 20 bucks. But I wanted this plastic airplane in the store that was owned by the government. And so I stole the money and went down and bought the plane. And unbeknownst to me, my aunt was standing right behind me while I was doing that whole thing. And I turned around and there she was, and uh-oh, I'm caught. But she didn't say anything. She waited until I walked out of the building, and then she says in a very unaccusatory way, in Unangan Tunu, but I'm translating. Larry, where did you get that $20 from? And of course, I knew I was caught. So I said, well, I stole it from my grandfather. And she goes, what do you think you should do about that? And so this is a different way. Instead of scolding or chastising or anything like that, again, as spirit beings in human form, we're very young, we don't know as much, but we need to learn how to think from the heart. And so I said, well, I guess I should take the plane back, get the money back, tell my papa I stole it. And she goes, Mahu, okay, just like that. So I went back to the store, took the plane in, and she took $20 out of her own pocket to buy the plane for me. And then I tell my papa, I said, you know, I stole this from you, Papa. And he goes, Echem nekoch lakaya. Good boy. So what are they doing? They're acknowledging that what I did was not correct, but they were more focused on those correct things that I did and reinforced that. And so from that point on, I never stole again. So that's a way that why we're never scolded, because scolding a child injures them and traumatizes them. Very few people understand how could simple words traumatize a child. But as a child, we don't have any defenses, and we let everything in. And if we hear something negative about ourselves, you know, we take that in, and we don't encourage that kind of system. And so we are very careful about the way we talk with children. And one of the things that I did, I was 6 years old at the time. You know, these seabirds, you can imagine 2.5 million seabirds on an island that small. And underneath each cliff are like tens of thousands of seabirds. There must have been at least 10,000 seabirds underneath the cliff that I went to when I was 6. I would wake up and get out and walk there by myself 3 miles away from the village at 6 years old. Today, it might be considered, you know, child doing the child wrong, but it's not. The only time that an adult would interfere is or intercede would be if the child was doing something that was threatening his life or the life of others. That was the only time they intervened. So I went and walked 3 miles off the island to this big bird cliff, and underneath that bird cliff were like 10,000 plus birds. You know, thick-billed murres, common murres, least ocklets, crested ocklets, tufted puffers, horned puffers, you know, all kinds of species. And I loved, at 6 years old, I loved that they were full of life. And so I said, what's the difference between a seabird and a human? And I said, well, birds don't think. I'm thinking in my 6-year-old mind. And so I said, I want to be a seabird. And so what I did is I worked at not thinking, and it took me a couple of months to get there, but I got there. I could not have a single word coming through my mind. And what these birds were doing, one of the things that I noticed about them, they were flying in every which direction and at different speeds, different heights. When they wake up off the cliff, they go into a circle in front of the cliff, waiting to collect members of their own species before they go out foraging. And so while they're doing that, they're coming and going from these cliff ledges. But I noticed at 6 years old, none of them even clipped a wing. And I said, wow, this is magical. And then so I didn't make the connection fully until my Acha invited me to go out hunting with him with 4 or 5 other hunters, and we would hunt for stellar sea lions. Now we hunt from shore to water because it's too rough for our craft. And so we would have high-powered rifle to hunt. And the men would sit in these basalt boulders and not be very active. They didn't talk very much. They were just focused on what they were there for. But yet I noticed by the time noon arrives, again, we would get out there about 6 o'clock in the morning when the sea lions are riding, we could see them. And, they never got daydreaming or sleepy, ever, not moving very much. But yet at 12, by the time 12 o'clock comes around, I've got that 6-year-old, I was sleepy, I was daydreaming, I was like everywhere else but there. And so I thought, wow, what the men are doing is magical. And then all of a sudden, somebody would say, "Kawa kako, sea lion coming." Now, mind you, we're in an island, 180 degrees of water to the horizon, and the sea lion could be anywhere. But yet, when that man said "Kawa kako," instantly all the men looked at one spot in the ocean. And I looked and didn't see a sea lion until maybe 5 to 7 minutes later, the sea lion pops up exactly where they're looking. And I thought, wow, this is magical too. Well, I made the connection between the hunters and the birds. The birds had taught the hunters what I did because I decided to use that thing in hunting. And when I did, I would never get sleepy and daydreaming again. I could sit there for hours. Don't tell me that a kid at 6 years old can't do that. I know we can. And so then I could feel the sea lion where it was going to pop up. And that was amazing. But from that, I realized the men had learned this from the seabird. I was never told stories about it, because I'm expected to learn on my own. But that's what they did. They took what they learned from seabirds and used it that way. And then I decided, okay, this works. So I'm going to try fishing. I started fishing when I was 5 years old. We fished for halibut, a hook, line, and sinker. And we go out up to 10 miles off the island on a little boat, and on a good day. And so when I applied that to fishing, I could sense when the halibut was coming to the line. I can tell you how it's hooked when it bites the line, either by the lip or the jaw or the side of the body. I can tell you what size it is, 3 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot halibut. I can tell you whether or not it's male or female. Now, this is something that scientists, and fishermen, they ignore because they take a lot of females. We don't. That's why it was important for us to know when we have something on line, is it male or female? And that would change the way we fish for it, because if the female is hooked on the line, you want it off the line before it gets to the top. Unless it swallowed the bait and gets to the center of the body, and most of the time you can let it go. And so then I can tell you how it's going to fight on the way up. That's all critical pieces of information that a good fisherman needs. And so all the men had it. And so this was a turning point in terms of my life, because I realized that there were things that we know that isn't taught by society. But yet society, I felt, needed that later on. I felt that. And then, so that was the basis of my childhood and learning what it means to be a real human being. And then I'm now living the legacy of my name. And as you said, I'm the key spokesperson for the Wisdom Weavers of the World, which is a collection of elders from throughout the world. And the head of, I created the Global Center for Indigenous Leadership and Lifeway. And so at this point in time, Ezra, it's really important for people to know what they must do during this time. When I first got the elders together from all over the world, we got it together in Hawaii, and in Kauai, Hawaii. And we only asked two questions for this meeting. One, what is the state of the world as they see it now? And two, what must we be doing now? And we would do ceremonies in a different tradition that were there in the morning and during sunrise ceremony, and then we would talk during the day. And their message to the world, it was encapsulated in a film. We have many hours of film of that gathering, but 15 minutes of the film was edited, and it was launched by Reuters news service in 2020, and it was interpreted into 15 different languages. And it was seen by over 80,000 people the first day. It was quite a remarkable beginning. But anyway, I'll stop there and see where it goes from here.
That's beautiful. There's so much that you've said. And I love this idea. Really, it touches me deeply. A real human being. What is a real human being? It's from a Unangan perspective, from what I'm hearing you saying, is someone who's in their heart, but not just in their heart, but in their full multi-sensory, even magical, suprasensory capacities. You're smelling the ocean. You're looking at the color of the ocean. You're navigating a sealskin kayak at times on the Bering, in the Bering Sea, and the rough waves and the fog. You can't see anything, and you're using, you're watching how the birds cross and in front of you to determine where you are, and also you're using your magic. You're using what I call biomagic or your eco-magic. You're in such deep connection with the ecology around you, but not just the ecology around you, but the ecology inside you. This listening and this silence, and your heart's open, and your peoples have developed not just technology for how to survive. And I mean, if it's worth everyone, if you haven't taken a look at videos or images of the Aleutian Island chains and St. Paul Island and the Pribilof Islands, to take a look and see how well you think you would do making a living there. That's there's not much grows, and it's most of probably what you ate was wild food, berries,
Yep.
and
Wild food.
yes, right. And barefoot, how you just to go barefoot in that environment is actually it's like a yogic city. It's it is something special, and so I'm in awe of the depth of connection, and also the technology. Well, how do you live with a group of 500 people all of your life? Every good thing you do, it comes back to the whole people. Everything you do that's out of resonance or out of coherence or out of harmony, well, you feel that it's like vibrating around in this echo chamber. If someone has grief and they haven't expressed it, then that can make the community sick, or anger if it's projected, you know. So for when I hear the wisdom from 10,000 plus years of how to live in synchrony and deep connection with the natural world and with other humans in this open way, and such openness to children, and you know, gardening the heart, really gardening the heart, I it just touches me. It touches me so deeply. and
Yeah.
and this is what everyone wants to remember. In their everyone who's listening here, in their hearts, you know, everyone wants to remember this. There's a genetic memory. I feel there's something, no matter how far back you have to go. I mean, you lived this life as, and it's so rare. It's so rare that there's, you know, someone who's really lived in this symbiotic way with the wild world. But there's, you know, there's so much. And I wanted to also ask you about this, what I call a womb cosmology. So I first came across your Bioneers. There's a Bioneers presentation you gave in 2013, the womb at the center of the universe. And at that time, my wife and I we were doing research and compiling information from cultures all over the world who had what we described as a womb cosmology, where women's wombs have a mirrored relationship or a holographic relationship with the womb of the earth, with the womb of the cosmos, and thus have an incredibly powerful role in birthing and creating and sustaining life, of course. And it's so important to honor and protect that as a society and as a group. And when I heard you speaking, I said, "Oh, you know, this is amazing. There's an intact 10,000 plus year old. Who knows how old that is? A womb centric cosmology that's part of creation magic." And I would love to hear more. And you apprenticed in a womb mystery school. This is remarkable to me, and I think something that everyone here would be very interested in just hearing a little more about that and what that means to you, or how that worked
Yeah.
out.
Well, we come from a feminine-based society. We have a moon calendar that we use, and everything is based on relationship. And so we understand the relationship with the waters, which is really feminine concept. And we also have stories about the womb at the center of the universe, but I'll tell you my personal experience with it. I was almost a teenager at the time, and I was looking at these incredible Unangan masks, you know, all completely different and very, very symbolic of things that are there. And I was lamenting the fact that no one does these masks anymore. And so I decided to go to the oldest man in the village. He was named Aggie. He was 88 years old at the time. I went to him because his grandfather was the last shaman on the island. And so I told him of my lament. And he says, "No, it's never been lost. You want to get it back? You go to the beach, grab a stick and a rock, and you start beating to the rhythm that you hear in around you. The wind, the sound of the seals, the birds, the waves, the grass that is rustling in the wind. All of these things you just take in without thought, mind you." And he said, "Then you wait." Now, what he meant was that we had to get out of the brain, out of the mind, and into the heart, and trust like the way our people have trusted for thousands of years. And you know that the answer is going to come. So you just wait. So I waited, it must have been a couple of hours. And then all of a sudden, in my mind's eye, came a black dot. And the black dot opened up. And out of it poured at least 100 different Unangan masks. I'm not an artist, I draw stick people. And here, so I was wondering, am I imagining this or what? So I went back to the old man and he said, you touch the womb at the center of the universe. That was the first practical thing that I heard about the womb. I heard the stories, but it was real for me now. He said, you touch the womb at the center of the universe. And so you have to get out of the mind, into the heart, be present in the moment, and trust in the way that I talk about, the trust that is at the cellular level. And then you wait. And so he was affirming to me that what I experienced was genuine. And what we understand about this is that the womb at the center of the universe is a place of creation and creativity. And that in every woman's womb is an identical field of energy. And so the elders around the world that I work with now, they say, women are going to take the lead during this time because this is a very profound time now. And the job of men is to protect the sacred space of women so they can do their work. So when women get together in sisterhood and heal themselves from all the trauma that you experience, you can then collectively put this field of energy in them outside of themselves. So a singular container is created energetically for something new to be birthed. Until this happens, nothing new is going to be birthed in this world. Even the state-of-the-art thinking, technology, that's nothing but the old regurgitated as the new. So, for example, when the US went to hybrid fuel, that's a good idea, right? So it stops the emissions into the air. But what happened was many of the world's farmers decided to follow it because that's more money, and converted their food crops to fuel crops that increased the cost of food around the world and increased starvation. That's an example of state-of-the-art thinking. And so we must be able to see this, but in order to see it, you first have to get out of the mind. Now, the elders that I work with say, the mind is top down and is telling your heart what to do. And traditionally, our hearts used to tell the mind what to do. And the mind's job is to implement that which your heart is telling you. And the thing about the heart is, I found in my life, it never guides you wrong. It has compassion, it has love, it has patience, it has understanding, it has all these things. But yet what people are feeling from their hearts, they project with their mind about things that seem not to make any sense to them, but because, what God would allow this to happen, for example. And the way we pray to give thanks and gratitude to a whole, the maker, and nothing else. Today's world is praying like to a Santa Claus God, I say. Santa Claus God, please give me this, please give me that. It's help my friend over here. It's always give me. and never sharing to say thank you. And we say thank you because we have been given every single thing we need in life. And we're praying to a God that says, you know, stop the war in Israel, for example. Millions of people are praying for that. And the thing is, no one thinks about this, that we have been praying for the end of wars for thousands of years, and yet it's happening. And some people say, well, God is abandoning us. No. What we understand is that we have to accept responsibility and deal with those things we created as human beings. And the maker doesn't concentrate on that, because the creator knows that human beings that create their own problems must solve them. But in order to solve them, you have to be in the heart, not in the mind. That seems, counterintuitive, but it's true. The mind is logical and rational, and that's where we should go, right? But no, we go to the heart, which is trans-rational. And the qualities that you have is trans-rational. And in today's world right now, with all the chaos that exists, we must understand that we create this chaos. We have to solve it ourselves. And the way that we do it is go to the heart, which has a gift to give to the world. To the world. Every single human being has some kind of gift. And that until and unless you go to the heart, you're not going to see this gift. But when you do, and your mind's job is to implement that what your heart is telling you, you are able, you don't think about whether or not, oh God, who's just me? I'm not going to make any difference. But with this understanding, the more people that are in the heart, the more better we're going to negotiate these times. And so we say there are no more gurus, singular gurus. We are all gurus now. And the answers for what we must do lies in our hearts. And so we encourage people to look at ways to go to the heart and to live from the heart, because otherwise we're lost. We're, the elders are saying, Mother Earth, she's taken care of herself for billions of years. She's going to take care of herself for billions more. It's not a question about whether or not Mother Earth is going to survive. It's a question about whether or not humans are going to survive. And whether or not we do depends on how well we know what it is to be a real human being.
I love what you've said in the past too. I've said that you've said that when you connect in, when you open your whole body intelligence, your heart, the intelligence of your cells, your womb, then and connect in, then you can hear and speak the language of one, which you've described as the language of one, which is the ability to communicate with all of the earth, all sentient beings, and the rivers and the mountains, the oceans perhaps too, and
all creation.
All creation. Yeah. And this is something that modern people, again, this is something modern people want more than anything. And to be in this space where we are hearing directly the messages of the earth that have indigenous traditions have been in direct communication. As you're saying, it's like, that you didn't have distinct names for wildlife necessarily, but they were your kin. This is the extended family. They're a part of you. They are your other self. They are just part of your relations. They're part of your extended family. And then the earth, being in conversation with the beings, all of creation. And so I would just ask, one of the title of this talk was Messages from the Earth. Are there key messages? And we've one of the ones that's been coming through is figuring out how to be this real person, figuring out how to come down out of the mind into this space of deep listening, deep connectivity, of working with coming together to create these womb spaces, to create something new life, new consciousness. And are there any other pieces that the earth is trying to share with us from an Unangan perspective, or other wisdom weaver council perspectives?
Yeah, it definitely is. When Mother Earth, when we entered the pandemic that we all went through, and all over the world they went through it, and they stopped everything. Everything came to a dead halt. And shortly thereafter, you could see the Himalayas from India for the first time in 30 years. And because of less smog. And the animals were showing up everywhere around the world in places where people used to go. And the ozone layer above the Arctic healed. That's Mother Earth showing that she can take care of herself if we understand what a real human being is. And that until that happens, it's not going to happen. We're doomed. And so there are ways that you can do that. And I come from a tradition that fortunately had that understanding. And now I am taking what my people know and people around the world know, Native people around the world, to share what it means to tackle these issues. Now, Don Alejandro, he used to be the keeper of the day calendar for the Mayans. He and I spent a week together in a teepee in northern Canada, of all places. And so we would share stories. And at the end, he said, we human beings are going to go through a hard time, very hard. And the ones who are going to negotiate this the best are going to be people of the fire, which means people of the heart, that you will know what you need to do during this time and where you need to live and all these other kinds of things in order to avoid that the massive destruction that is unfolding. Because Mother Earth, she's going through a raise in consciousness, just like we are. We are the same as Mother Earth. We're reciprocal, and one of which is the raise in consciousness. Human beings are raising in consciousness. I speak with many forums over the last 3.5 years, millions of people, and I can tell you that people are waking up. They are waking up, and they're wondering, what is it that we should do now? And so that's why we got the elders together to talk about this. And they are saying that the same thing that Don Alejandro says. If we want to get through this time of wars and political corruption and refugees and violation of women and all these kinds of things, they're created by the mind. And so what we must do is unravel that, dismantle it, so that we live in a world that we want to see. Now, the elders say, good people, good heart are working to stop things. I think about environmental groups. There are thousands of more environmental groups around the world today than there were 30 years ago. But yet, Mother Earth's life support system for humans are going down, and nobody asks why. And the why I'm going to explain. We're trying to stop these things from happening. And so we focus, remember, we're energy beings, the mental, physical, and spiritual energy. And when we take this energy and put it into that which we're trying to stop, increases in its intensity. And so we are seeing that now happening. What we should do, or what we must do, the elders are saying, is focus. Yes, if you need to participate in this thing to stop these kinds of things, do it. But don't pour all of your energies, mental, physical, and spiritual, into that. What we must do is focus on the world we wish to see now, not in reaction to anything, but the world we wish to see without reaction. And that, of course, your heart will tell you what that is for you, that you can give to the world as a gift, because we don't have much time left as human beings. And we've got to act. And it'll take an internal and external way. And the internal, of course, is, all the things I'm talking about, what it takes to be a real human being. And the external is a way of helping Mother Earth to be in harmony with Mother Earth. And that means that we must get rid of this mental consciousness that we are superior to everything else, and that we are equal, and everything else is equal to us, and no more, no less. And so when I think, I think about the doctrine of discovery, which, was a thing that was enacted by a pope in 1200 to 1300 BC, AD. And when they did that, it worked to disconnect your heart and go directly to the mind. And we think about all the ways that we disconnect from the heart. World War II, veterans that came back from Vietnam War, by the tens of thousands came back very depressed. And many of them couldn't stand to be around other human beings. So they isolated themselves. And many of them took to addictive behaviors. And these became parents that passed along their behavior to their children. And so we know that each generation is going to be worse until we wake up. And so we need to think from the heart. And the way to do it, I asked an elder, what is this about culture anyway? And that elder said, well, our professor? Because our professor is the 2-year-old child. And if for those of 2-year-old children, when I saw two young 2-year-old boys playing with each other, they were happy. Then all of a sudden, one of them just, got angry, and so it embodied this, and just feel the feeling, and then he let it go, because they know that even not if it's not in our heads, they know from their hearts they are energy beings, And one of my elders, Rita Blumenstein, she was the spiritual advisor to the 13 grandmothers. And she said, you know, when you hold your feeling in, be it happy or sad, and hold it in, it becomes like a toxic soup. And that toxic soup eventually will kill you. And so that's what that elder was talking about. The reason that we have our dances, our songs, our chants, and all these kinds of things is because we are energy beings, and we are taking that from children that show us how to be energy beings. We live in a society that's not safe to emote, right? Except for maybe crying in anger, but very little else. If a man cried in a business meeting, that would be a no-no. So we are living in a society that is taking us away from those things that are true. And so what we must do, you would say, when you encounter that feeling in some unsafe place, because people don't understand, you acknowledge it, acknowledge that feeling as soon as you have it, and said, I will get back to you. And then when you're in a safe place, you just let it out. And this is the same for joy and all these things that come. The joy is meant to be experienced in the moment, not held back inside of your heart, because then it becomes toxic. So I would say, look at the 2-year-old child and see what it's teaching, because the 2-year-old child is natural. And they're not like us adults that layer after layer we put on ourselves and then we forget. Remember the understanding that you used to, as a child, have enthusiasm, have focus, where you focus on some living thing, you know, like, oh, this plant, and look at the plant and study it for what, 20 minutes or more. That's what a child does. And what we are doing instead is focusing in on all of our energies, our injuries that we experience in life. So women, for example, they have they have the experience of the lineages before them. And most of that experience is negative because they are born into a masculine world. But we call it the imbalanced masculine. And what used to happen with it would be like a pendulum that swung back and forth between masculine imbalance and feminine imbalance. And the last one was masculine imbalance, which we are still in. And this is why women are needed to take the lead, because they experience another thing besides the masculine. And, you know, women, if they choose to gather in sisterhood, can heal themselves just like that. We men, we take a lifetime to understand something, but women can do it instantly. And once they do that, then if they work together to put this focus of energy in the middle, something new will be birthed, and so we have a chance.
I love this. I love this. It's womb-centric, creation-centric, life-centric technologies of dance, songs, the masks that came through in your vision of how we access these new and ancient places of consciousness to create and co-create the world that we want, and to focus a lot of our energy there and birth something beautiful. And one of the things that I find so powerful and very deeply reassuring is that even within our body, we contain the 4.5 billion years of planetary evolution, of Earth's evolution, in our DNA, in our cells, in our our hearts. We've talked a lot about our hearts today. Hearts first came onto this planet 500 million years ago. And our hearts are a mirror of those first hearts that came, and on, and on and on. It's within us, it's outside of us, and there's a world of deep interconnected magic, healing, awakening, new creation that's here for us. And I so appreciate, I could listen to you all day, but I'm respectful of your time as well. And there's so much we've spoken about, and so much more we could. And I want to say thank you so much for being here. And I wondered if it would be okay if you have time for just a few questions from our audience, if anyone wishes to ask. And if you do have a question, please put it in the chat. Please type it out in the chat. It'll be easier that way. And we'll hold the floor open for a few questions, out of respect to Ilarion's time and energy as well. I know you're recovering from a flu or something like that. Yeah, it's going around. So,
and at 74 years old, when the flu hits, you really feel it.
yes, I can imagine. I can imagine. So, any questions? If you have a question for Ilarion, please put it in the chat. Okay. And then I'll also say, so Ilarion is is co-founder of the Wisdom Weavers of the World. It's a council of elders. There is a Facebook page that posts events and happenings. Also, the movie you spoke of, it's on that Facebook page. And so people who are interested in learning more, you can visit there. And there's also the Global Center for Indigenous Leadership and Lifeways. I'm going to go ahead and spell out that URL, that web page, which is www.gcill.world. And the Wisdom Weavers website is wisdomweavers.world, www.wisdomweavers.world. And you can go to these places, learn more about what Ilarion is up to with many beautiful projects and connecting people all over the world. And of course, if you feel inspired, many of the leaders of the World Wisdom Council, the Wisdom Weavers Council of the World, do not have a lot of material funds, and there are ways to donate to that. So if you are feeling that you wish to contribute, you can connect and make donations there. So I'm looking at what's coming through in the chat here, and there's a lot of appreciation. I'll just read some of these out loud. Thanks so much. Just thinking about your perspective about health and how to treat the body, and about woman leaders, a message to them. And so no questions, but so much gratitude for your teachings, and give away from your heart. And there's a comment. There's a lot coming through. And one question, I wonder if you suggest any embodied movement or breath or practices to connect with the heart.
That's a good question. Yeah, there are many different ways to do it. And one of the ways is called active meditation. Not the meditation where you sit down and in a lotus position and you bring your hands together and you try to get to that place of no thought. The Westerners are in a very accelerated society, so it takes something like active meditation to really start getting to a place. Now, you have to understand that these practices are looked at by many people in the world as crazy, but in indigenous ways, we know they're not. So, for example, how many of your viewers have done gibberish as a child, right? We've all done it. And so you do gibberish for an hour every day, and in 3 months, you will start to see the change. Now, that requires some discipline. And so you find a place and a time to do this every week or every day for a month even. And you will see the difference. What you do when you do this is you do this gibberish for an hour, and then you lay down and just feel. Eventually, you're going to feel it without thought. And it's a way to gently guide you back to the real human being. You can do the same with laughter. You know, they have laughter kiosks in India. And it's very wise because laughter is another form of energy. Remember, we're energy beings, so we're all looking at ways to release this energy. And so laughter is another way I guide people in doing that. So it's many other things because there's no singular way, like a pre-made meditation program that's the same all the time. We need to understand that every human being is different and their needs are different. So there's not going to be a singular way to access this place of no mind. And when you do that, you can do what they call that dance, that the whirling dervish. You can do whirling dervish. Now that's a way of meditation, but it's a way of being. When you can find it by going around in a circle yourself, and you might get afraid of being dizzy if you do this fast enough and long enough. But what you do is you take your hand and focus in the center of that hand, and just focus on it while you're doing your gibberish, like the whirling dervishes do. You know, they have their hand out there, and so you would do that, and you can. And I've done these things myself. I don't ask anybody to do the things that I don't do myself. And everything that I'm telling you is from personal experience. And so whirling dervish is amazing because you will find that your body just naturally, when you let go of all of the things that want to attach itself to that act, will be freeing. And you know, the Hopi Maori, they say, let go of the sides of the riverbank, move toward the center, find those who've done the same, and celebrate. And what that means is letting go of all human attachments, all human attachments. Go to the center means going to your proverbial heart center, plus the center of the river of life, because it knows where it's going, and we don't. And then find those who've done the same, is find those who've had the courage like you did to jump. That, according to the elders that I work with, say is going to become the new definition of tribe. The old definitions are going to go by the wayside. The new definition is someone of like-minded heart. I'm not saying mind and heart, I'm saying like-minded heart. And so that's those are just a few things you can do. And look at a 2-year-old child and see what he does. You want to jump on a bed? Then, you know, we used to do that as children, right? I think most of you probably have jumped on beds. Well, that's ingenious because even NASA astronauts use that. They get on a trampoline and jump up and down. And what that does is that when your body's moving upward, your insides are going down, and it forces toxins out of your body. That's just a simple thing that 2-year-old children do. And so look at the 2-year-old child and see what that child has to teach you.
Thank you, Ilarion. I love that. Moving your energy, trauma release. Look to the 2-year-old children. I absolutely relate. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I watch how she moves her energy out when she has something coming up. That energy is going to be it's going to be released. And yeah, kids are very good at that. There's one other question that we have time for. One other question, and this is a question: how can mothers heal their traumas that have been passed down from their mothers, passed down the maternal line from the trauma against women and the feminine? How can mothers heal this trauma so that we can parent better, so mothers can parent better and have fewer triggers with their own children?
Yeah, that's an important question. Because women, they have all these traumas passed down from generation to generation. But you also have a womb. And most of the time, for most women, they have that womb that contains the seeds, or the egg, if you will, from your grandmother. And so this is something that you need to understand. But when you start engaging in healing, you must do it with others in a safe space. Now, I have guidelines for safe space creation that is given freely to anybody. And so you want the safe space, and all women will go through what their pain is. And the circle would have a way of listening, which is a very special kind of listening. We don't listen with agenda. There's no agenda. You have to speak from your heart. So you just speak from your heart, and you speak as long as you want to. And everything that's spoken stays in that circle. And that we understand that your truth is equally valid as my truth. And so these are some of the guidelines. And so when women do that, they are able to heal themselves quickly. Otherwise, you're going to take as much as us men take to heal. It'll take a lifetime. But the only way to get rid of it or not get rid of it, you transform it. You take these negative energies that you have, memories that you have, and feel them, and then let them go. And then you will be able, slowly but surely, with these other kinds of things that we talk about, these active meditations, for example, you begin to feel like a real human being. And you'll realize that this changes the way that you look at the world. And everybody's got this potential if they choose to act it. And especially now, I feel we all have a responsibility to do this. Otherwise, you might as well kiss us humanity goodbye. And I'm not kidding. All these elders around the world say that we must become real human beings.
Thank you, Ilarion. Tap into this creative power of source of the womb of creation, the womb that's mirrored in the bodies of women's, and let's learn how to become real human beings with our hearts awakened, with our full body intelligence awakened, connected to ecology, connected to those sea lions that you can feel when they're 10 miles away. We all have this within us, this ability to open our deep ecological magic. And thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor and privilege and joy and fun to speak with you, to listen to your wisdom. from coming down this lineage of 10,000 years in deep, deep harmony with the earth and with other humans, and also bringing in the wisdom from other indigenous elders that you're in communion with. So thank you, and many blessings. Look forward to meeting again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. And, I give thanks to all of your listeners because they are all gurus and we are all sacred. And that's a story that we must tell ourselves every day. I am sacred, and I am worthwhile. I am worth it. And what I need to do to help humanity is to do these things that I generally talk about. And if you want to pursue your own path, then, for example, we're working with the Colombian elders from South America. They have recently created an organization that's modeled after the Wisdom Weavers. They have 105 tribes that are members of this, and 400 elders that are members of it. And they have a vision that they share in common that they want the rest of the world to know about. That vision is to create, this goes beyond quantum physics. It creates a vibrational field around Mother Earth of love. And that this is one way that the Native people are choosing to help during this time. And so they are saying, do it with us simultaneously. If we're going to create this vibratory field, we need to do it together. And that when this happens, it gives an alternative to the field that we're in now, which is focused from the head. It is energy that is created, that is in the head, that is a cause for all the ills that we face now. And so we find that there are many other indigenous groups around the world that share the same vision. And so we're working at these vibratory field being created around the world. And in this way, we have another chance to survive. And if you're interested in it, you can either go to an elder that's participating in this kind of thing and ask them what to do, or you can pray for them. And mind you, it's not praying to a wall, because this is human created things we're trying to change. You pray to those who have agreed to intervene on our behalf. The guardian angel, the ancestors, the spirit guides and helpers. They have agreed to help us. But they cannot act until you specifically ask them for help. Because one of the universal laws is free choice. Everything has free choice. And that because of that, they do not interfere with your own sacred path unless you ask them to intervene. And when you ask them that, it must be a request that is in harmony with all that is. So it requires real preparation to think about what that is. For Native people, we do purification ceremonies. And there are many different ways to purify. And so that's one of the things that we're doing. We're also working with changing the environmental group philosophy of not working together. I worked with all the major environmental groups in the world. and they all follow their own mission, and they don't work together, except for on occasion, one or two organizations might decide to work together, but they generally do not work together. And these environmental organizations, we're working with one environmental organization that puts on a World Wilderness Congress. And every 4 years, there are 80 countries involved. And the next convocation of gathering is going to be in August of this year in the Black Hill at a native influence. So they're working closely with all the native people to get that started. And so those are things that you can get involved in. You don't need to be invited to a native function because every native function, all are welcome. When they do like powwows, for example, people are telling me, do I get permission to go to powwows? I said, no, you just go. And in that way, you'll get to meet and know some of the people that are involved with this. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we can't do this on our own. It's so important to make those prayers, inviting that help. That's at the foundation of it. But thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Everyone who's been here live with us and bringing your energy and your love and appreciation. There's so many really wonderful comments, Ilarion, in the chat. I don't know if you've been seeing some of them. There's so much appreciation, so much gratitude, some really beautiful messages. And for everyone who's going to see this in the future, there are more than 500 people who are registered, and this will be available even beyond that. So thank you, and biggest blessings. May we heal, may we awaken, may we create beautiful things together.
Yeah, thank you, Azra, and thank everyone who's been watching. And hopefully what I shared can be useful to you. And if you resonate with anything that I say, it's because I am just reminding you of what you already know.
Mm.
Yeah.
Blessings.